Hello everyone! Welcome back to Let's Play Great Ace Attorney. In our last episode, we found out that Officer Pat Beat had moved the scene of the crime, and Miss Garadeb is likely the one who's done it. And she's been using the fact that she's a jurist to try to get out of testifying. Van Zieks is actually helping us. So without further ado, let's get started. State your name and occupation. Yes. My name is Joan Garadeb. And I'm a juror and such like. It sounds like even she doesn't know if she's a housewife or a maid or what anymore. The court has decided your testimony is required in order to clarify matters on this case. Do you understand, madam? Yes, my lord. You will tell the court everything that took place in your household on the evening in question. And I warn you, do not attempt to hide the truth. Oh, dearie me. Chin up, Joni. Nothing to worry about now. Oh, I didn't know you were here, John. Wasn't only you in the room that day, old thing, was it? I rather think I ought to testify as well, don't you? But what about your knee, dear? Don't you worry about that. Hardly notice it. I'm not the sort of chap to lead a comrade to face disciplinary action alone. Oh, John. I presume you are Mr. John Garadeb? Yes, sir. Former 2nd Lieutenant of the 3rd Regiment of the 4th Northumberland Fusiliers, sir. Seen my fair share of action and now living the quiet life, as it were. The quiet life. Were you not engaged in an incendiary battle with your spouse on the day in question? Well, yes. Quite. I believe this may represent a first in the proud history of the British court. Calling a juror to the witness stand is unprecedented. However, the court will hear your testimony now, juror number 4, and that of your husband. You will recount clearly and concisely the events in your home at the time of the incident in question. Sir, at once! The Battle of Garadeb. Yes, on the day you're referring to, the wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason now. Knocked a candlestick over and set fire to the carpet. Soon had it out, though, and got the window open. Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him. Plenty of knives around our place. Can't say I'd notice if 1 or 2 went missing, I'm afraid. If that bully thing on the victim's back really was one of ours, you'll have a job proving it, I think. It sounds as though it was quite the battlefield in your household that evening. Although an entirely one-sided assault, it seemed. The enemy caught us on the hop, sir. Had no choice but to dig in and take defensive measures. To be honest, if the enemy had kept shelling us for another minute, we'd have been toast. Of course, a veteran such as myself is only too aware that on every battlefield you're just a gnat's whiskers from death at any moment. Are we still talking about a marital quarrel here? Well, I must say I'm dubious that this testimony will shed any light on the origins of this jackknife. In combat, one's focus narrows such that surroundings are barely noticed. These witnesses may not be able to offer anything more than they have testified already. This may be a dead end. Van Zieks may as well be right. What are the chances we have of this last cross-examination to uncover the truth, Mr. Naruhodo? Very well, counsel. Begin your cross-examination. even though the room was on fire. As far as I was concerned at the time, it was more important to extinguish my anger than the flames. When a woman wants to throw, she must throw. How did she know I was thinking about that? So, please cast your mind back and try to remember. Was a knife among the items you threw at your husband that day? In all honesty, I don't recall. I feel I must point out that I'm no monster. Let me see. Some bread, a cabbage, garlic, a towel, and a sponge, a napkin.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to add, sir? Mr. Garadeb. Hey! Don't you... sorry. I beg your pardon. Did your wife's remark now bring something to mind? Nothing of any significance, no. Just the barrage of projectiles the old thing launched in my direction was somewhat more solid than she applies. Books, bricks, and the fire poker, I seem to recall. Ouch. And the woman's aim is uncanny. She landed a direct hit with everybody. Yay! Good grief, woman, we're not at home now. This is a court of law. Oh, dearie me. Ever so sorry, dear. What's she even doing with a teapot in here? Honestly, John, I would never have thrown such things at you, obviously. Well, take a look at this, then. How do you suppose that happened, in? Your pipe, sir. Had this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles, she did. Yes. When I went to pick up the thing up, it was broken in two. I like to see a sponge do that sort of damage. I see. Your pipe was broken. It would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Anyway, I managed to bandage the thing up for now. You're one to exaggerate, aren't you, dear? I wonder what we should make of this account. The defense believes Mr. Garadeb's now to be of great significance. I actually missed that, and I wanted to press that. The war veterans' words only tell us one thing. Betray a fiery wife, and pipes, as well as hearts, may be broken. Sentimental wisdom, perhaps, but hardly worthy of adding to the formal testimony. Indeed, common sense, one might say. Might one? In that case, would you at least permit us to examine the pipe, sir? Well, I don't see why not. Oh, dearie me, there you go again, trying to ingratiate yourself with a young lady. I'm actually kind of curious. The tip's broken. Oh, look here, Mr. Naruhodo. Just at the tip, a small piece of the blade appears to be missing. It could still be lodged in the victim. No. Alright, there's the tobacco pipe. Well. Something just twinkled inside the chamber of the pipe there. It's a tiny fragment of metal. The tip of a blade. It's the tiny tip. It's a perfect fit. Hooray. Thank you for that rebuttal, Mr. Gardav. Now, if we could return to the crew of the matter, what can you tell us about the court? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Well, now we can prove it. Mr. Gardav, could I ask you to take a good look at this, please? You can ask, but I can't see a bally thing. You can't? You used to call me Deadeye Deb back then in the regiment, of course, but that was some time ago. Even when I'm trying to enjoy a large print book by the fire these days, I struggle to tell a B from a D and a P from a Q, to be honest. Oh, he does. Dear me, it's rather weary being asked about every other letter in every other word. Hang on. Okay, I'm back. Let's see, where was I? Oh, he does. Dearly me, it's rather wearying being asked about every other letter in every other word. You must be very busy. What is that? A tiny scrap of metal. Yes, almost certainly from the tip of a blade. And what may appear at first to be just a tiny scrap may in fact be a crucial piece of evidence. Interesting. And where did the defense come by this evidence? It was lodged in the chamber of Mr. Garadeb's pipe. My pipe, you say? By Jove, I wonder how that thing got there. And what precisely does this fragment of metal signify, Counsel? Are you suggesting it is in some way related to the matter of the stabbing on Briar Road? Ow! I am. What? When put together with another piece of evidence already in the court record, I believe this tiny fragment of metal will unravel the whole truth of this case, my lord. Oh, she's on a crate. Ha! You appear rather confident in that extraordinary statement, Counsel. Very well, then, present the pertinent evidence to the court. What evidence, when paired with this fragment of metal, allegedly reveals the truth of the case?
Take that!
This is the knife that was found in the victim's back. If you look closely, you will see that there is a small piece at the tip of the blade that is missing. A common issue with the inferior blades sold at unsavory street markets. Criminals who use them regularly leave the tips lodged in their victims' bones. And what of this particular knife? No doubt its tip has suffered a similar fate, now languishing somewhere near the spine of the victim.
Objection!
No, that's not the case. What? The tip of this particular knife's blade is the very fragment of metal we discovered in the chamber of Mr. Garadeb's pipe. Hey! Hey! Good grief! Lord Van Zieks! I don't believe it. The knife from the crime scene and this fragment of metal are a perfect match. Good golly gosh! Order! Is this some sort of Eastern sorcery? This is no magic, my lord. This is a miracle. A miracle? So Van Zieks has figured it out, has he? Counsel, explain this extraordinary coincidence at once. Yes, my lord. The crucial point we have to ask ourselves here is when did the fragment of metal find its way in Mr. Garadeb's pipe? Something like that was clarified for us in the most recent witness testimony. Had this thing in my hand as usual, at the time of the onslaught. Knocked her clean out with one of her soft projectiles, she did, yes. I'd never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Oh, dearie me. During the argument between these two that occurred just as the victim was on the pavement below, Miss Garadeb flung this knife at her husband. However, the knife missed Mr. Garadeb, instead striking the pipe in his hand at the time, which caused the tip to break off, of course. Good Lord! Yes, and that is when the tiny tip of the blade found its way inside Mr. Garadeb's pipe. The chances of that are 1,000,000 to 1! Yet there's no other credible explanation for how the tip of the blade ended up in your pipe. Then after losing its tip, the knife ricocheted off the pipe and flew out the open window. Ah! In short, this knife which fell from the window of the Garadeb's house is the very same knife that struck the victim in the middle of the back and the street below. Oh gosh. Oh dear. Oh. No! Your undies are showing. A full-bodied theory, I'll give you that. A complex bouquet of seemingly trivial points, plausibly arranged to create an almost passable vintage. Allow me to toast my learned friend's characteristically Nipponese approach to bottling this argument. Sorry, but after all, it is just a theory. The bottle, I fear, is corked. Because, you see, it's spoilt by an insurmountable inconsistency. Insurmountable? What? Lord Van Zeeks, explain yourself. What is the inconsistency you claim to have identified? We're almost done. An inconsistency of the simple nature, my lord. The victim was found with a knife planted in the middle of her back. Yes, in her... Ah! That's right, you silly little man. Now, Joan, old thing, what are you getting so excited about? Let us consider the basic facts of the case once more. The victim was walking along the pavement before being stabbed in the back and fallen to the ground. The knife had struck her and fallen from above. There's no possible way it could have been planted itself into the victim's back. Yeah! Ow! Order! Order! What right you see? That's exactly right. If the knife had fallen on her from above, it would have struck her on the top of her head. Well, he's lost for words. Look, I knew it. Never liked the theory in the first place. I don't know, though. What really did happen? It would appear the defense has made rather a spectacular blunder. If a theory has even one inconsistency, it cannot stand. Your theory, my learned friend, is history! No, that's not the case. I was so sure we were on the right track. Now the way's been blocked completely. Or in other words, we simply need to eliminate that one inconsistency and the theory will stand. You mustn't worry, Mr. Naruhodo. You were just caught off on guard, that's all. And your mind went blank. But if the path you were on is indeed correct, then a way will present itself. The key to this is in the court record, I'm sure. All the information you need is there. It seems you have nothing to say, my Nipponese friend. Well, your silence speaks volumes. A tacit acceptance that your theory is fatally flawed. I don't think so.
Objection.
The This inconsistency doesn't mean I was on the wrong track. It means that I need to sharpen my mind and dig deeper for the truth. That's a test! Yes! If the knife fell on the victim from above, there's no way it could have hit her in the middle of her back. Under normal circumstances, that is. What are you implying? Counsel! There is a piece of evidence in the court record that can explain this inconsistency. We already have the answer. Goodness! Utter madness! Surely this must be the last time. Counsel, present the evidence of which you speak. The last inconsistency, the final piece. Alright, book number 4. I choose you.
Take that!
This, the 4th book found at the scene, is the final piece of evidence the defense will present. The burnt book? Is that not Mr. Garadeb's book? Yes, and to understand its significance, we have to consider how it came to be at the scene in the first place. The photographic print clearly shows the book in question, and the victim holding it in her hand. But as we all know now, it was the policeman constable that put the book between her fingers like that. Quite so, as part of the wholesale transplanting of the crime scene of the opposite road. That's true. However, as part of his testimony, Constable B made an extremely enlightening statement on that point. But what made you place the book in the victim's hand? Oh, well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. When we first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. In other words, the victim had already picked the book up by her own volition. And clearly that must have been before she suffered the knife wound. Well, I should say so. After being attacked with a knife, I don't imagine she'd have been doing much of anything. So the question becomes, why did the victim have that book in her hand? By jingo! I think I'm beginning to see what may have happened now. Oh, dearie me! We know that the book fell from the top floor of the Garadeb household onto the pavement below, at precisely the moment that the victim was walking past. Yes, at exactly that moment, the young woman was walking along the street in the light fog, when all of a sudden, a book fell right in front of her. The book I threw. Miss Garadeb, and what do you think the woman did? What would you do if you were walking along and suddenly a book landed in front of you on the pavement? Well, I really can't imagine it, but I suppose she might have reached down and picked the book up. Yes! That's exactly what the woman in fact did. She picked up the book. Oh heavens! And when the woman reached down to pick the fallen book up, what position would her back have been in? That's right, facing the sky, completely and utterly defenseless. Then in the very next moment, while the woman was bent over picking up the book, the next object fell from the room above, the jackknife, straight in the middle of her back. And at that same time, walking by chance directly behind the screen, was the defendant, Mr. Shosuke Natsume. Well, I never! It appeared to Mr. Natsume that the woman simply collapsed on the floor. In the dark and the fog, he didn't see the knife falling on her from above. Ah! And from the other direction, a constable and his wife saw no one but the victim and her apparent attacker. So there never was a real culprit to run from the scene in the first place. No, this was nothing more than a series of unlikely events that culminated in an unfortunate accident. And that is the real truth behind this case. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb? The very first time you showed me that knife, I had my suspicions. I wondered if perhaps it might have been something like that. There, old bean. Poor Miss Garadeb. Of course, I never meant for anything of the sort to happen, but it was all my fault, wasn't it? I take full responsibility. I let my anger get the better of me. I threw that book, and I threw the knife as well. John dear, it's all right. I know. I'm ever so sorry. Truly. I'm sorry! Oh, dash it all. Oof. Medic. Lord Van Zieks, what is the news of Miss Garadeb? She's been taken to the infirmary. It would appear that today's events have left her in an especially flustered state. However, I believe she will recover in due course. There's no cause for concern. Yes, unbeknownst to themselves, they caused what could easily have been a terrible tragedy. They shall have to prepare themselves for the consequences of their action. There is some good news, however, my lord. I've just had word from the hospital where the victim is being treated. Her condition is improving steadily, and the doctor believes she will regain consciousness soon. It's strange. We've been talking about the victim all this time, but we've never once met her. How wonderful. The woman is out of danger, it seems. Yes, that's good news. So, Mr. Sosuke Natsume. Yes. On behalf of my fellow countrymen, I would like to take this opportunity to beg your pardon, sir. You came from your distant eastern homeland to study our great British culture, and have been repaid with immeasurable unkindness. Please accept our heartfelt apologies. No, it is me who should be begging your pardon. Oh no, Mr. Natsume. That evening, when the young woman just collapsed on the pavement before my eyes, I jumped to the wrong conclusion again in my confusion. What conclusion, sir? I was sure the woman was dead. Yes, Constable Beat said the same thing, didn't he? He thought she'd been killed too. I suppose she must have looked completely lifeless. It's been about a year since I've arrived in Great Britain now, but I still can't get used to life here. I can't relax. I'm sure there are evil spirits lurking in the fog, like they're haunting me. Poor Sosuke-san. His imagination really has got the better of him. So when it happened, I thought the young woman had been taken by the fog spirits. I should never have dropped my books like that and run away. I should have called for help, for doctor, for the police. Instead, I've managed to create a rift in the relationship of trust between our two empires. And for that, I'm truly sorry. One could indeed say that some sort of mischievous spirit has been at work here, I think. One that created a chain of unfortunate mishaps. We were befooled by this spirit and led to false conclusions. But thanks to Lord Van Zieks and our young lawyer from the east, the chain has been broken and the spirit exorcised. I heartily commend you both. Oh. Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Yes, my lord. In concluding this trial, I must ask one last time for your decisions regarding the defendant's culpability. Are you ready to present your findings to court? As the foreman of this jury, I can assure you we've reached a fair and just conclusion. I do declare the truth can be extremely cruel at times. Well, I didn't suspect the woman next to me, that's for sure. Sitting in for the old bean while she's out of action, you know. But I know what her decision will be. This is mean I'll finally be able to get out of here and start work. Well, it's about time. I say, I'll have a corker of a story to tell the grandchildren when I get home, won't I? Very well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I hereby demand your final decisions. Mr. Foreman!
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Very well, Mr. Sosuke Natsume, I hereby pronounce you not guilty. And this one's deserved. That is all. And finally, Mr. Natsume. Oh yes, Lord Sir. You are now a free man once more. It is my hope you will continue to further your education in British culture. And may you never again be brought before me. Oh yes, sir. Of course. On my life. I swear I'll never set foot in a courtroom again. That's what I do, kiss. Thank you, consuls. Court is adjourned. Oh, Locum. Wait, you mean me? Of course! Is there another Locum here? Is there even one? Compared to the original Locum student at Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, your name has become rather short, hasn't it? What's wrong with using my actual name? Oh, at last! I'm free! I'm free! Joyful, joyous, jubilant, jubilation! Heady, hearty, happiness, hurrah! Oh, I'm pleased. Mr. Natsume is delighted. And if we keep doing this, he's gonna start breaking into the YMCA. Would it be hard to just say that then? Locum, you did it! You saved me from the brink! Well, what happened to the poor woman was in no way your fault after all. I'm just glad everyone can see that now. No, not that! Lovely, loyal, Locum, lawyer! Yes? I mean, as I said before, I've just never gotten used to life here in Great Britain. Every time I look over my shoulder, I see foreigners. I see towering brick buildings. And from high up windows, I see them looking down at me, laughing. Look at that little hunchback. Oh dear. I'm sure it's all in your head, Mr. Natsume. But today, you Locum lawyer gave my gloom the boot. You stood firm behind that baronial bench before all those babbling British. You battled to the bitter end, laying bare the baffling truth. And when I beheld the blinding fireworks amongst the beams of the Bailey's roof, I bellowed, "Behold the best barrister ever born!" Well, that's very flattering, and we're very pleased for you. This has given me a wonderful anecdote to recount to my old friends back in Japan. An anecdote? That what's become of all my hard work? Ah, there you are, my dear fellows. I apologize for keeping you awaiting. I rose late this morning. Mr. Sholmes, what a pleasure to see you. I see I am here not a moment too soon. Disaster has been averted, I'm glad to say. The trial shall begin presently, Mr. Naruhodo, and I wish you the very best of luck. It's just finished. What? No! And my hassle was and my haste was in vain? Ah, it's you! Herlock Sholmes! Oh? Have we met, sir? This is Mr. Natsume, the man you had arrested, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, I see. I failed to recognize you at first. Our previous encounters had taken place in the gloom. Either of your Black Leak lodgings or that of your prison cell. I simply couldn't place that curious face in the light. Charming. This is all your fault, Herlock Sholmes. You're the real reason I had to go through this terrible ordeal. I'm going to give you a piece of my mind. My apologies, sir, but I assure you, I've placed you now. You're the fellow who abandoned that poor young lady and ran off, aren't you not? Had she been taken to a hospital more urgently, I feel perhaps she would have regained consciousness by now. Oh. But that was unavoidable, I'm sure. We have a human after all. Anyone would have been shaken by such an experience. I do feel very badly about how I behaved. Well, never mind. Now then, what was it you wanted to say to me, sir? Nothing. Ha ha ha! Priceless! Oh, I'm sorry. Really, but... that was quite priceless. Poor Sosuke-san. Still, on the brighter side, you've had an extremely entertaining experience without paying a penny. And it would seem you were not even found guilty. But there is no bright side. What do you mean, Mr. Natsume? Even after this, I'm still cursed by the spirits, and now by the Reaper! Lord Van Ziegs, haven't forgotten, you know, what facing that man in court means. Even if you're found not guilty, you're still doomed! It will be alright, Mr. Natsume. If the Reaper appears trying to make trouble, I'll protect you. Hiya! With a perfectly executed Susato takedown. Much as I like being turned on my head, a bit of warning might be nice next time, Miss Susato. So, Mr. Natsume, what do you intend to do now? You mentioned something about recounting your experiences to your friends back in Japan? Yes, I intend to return to my homeland soon. Oh! It has already been a year since I arrived here in Great Britain. I've visited universities, libraries, bookshops. I've been honored with the tutelage of professors. I've learned so much about the wealth of literature here, and the city it has shaped. And I've come to realize it is my calling to sail home and tell my fellow countrymen about it. That's very touching, Mr. Natsume. Or in perhaps less veiled terms, you wish to withdraw halfway around the world to escape the terror of the Reaper's curse. That's not it at all! The more I learn of literature, the more this strange feeling claws at my insides. I feel compelled to return to my roots and attempt to pen a work of my own. I see. A work of literature by Sosuke-san. Could be an interesting read. And what about Miss Susato and yourself, Mr. Naruhodo? Sorry, what about us? Will you return to Japan alongside your mustached compatriot? Why would we? A week has not yet passed since we arrived in London, and only now does it feel as though we have finally found our feet. And you are accommodated in a hotel at present, are you not? That's right, but we need to find lodgings before it bankrupts us. I've calculated we can only afford another 10 nights before our entire budget is exhausted. Well then, you could take my lodgings. Oh, the windowless room. But what it lacks in windows more than makes up with a floor, a ceiling, and walls. Great. And of course, I'd be happy to leave behind the accursed evil spirit. Oh my, an evil spirit. Oh yes. It tries to suffocate you while you sleep. It's an infallible wake-up call. We'll think about it, if that's alright. Perhaps I can offer a more welcome alternative. Would you consider taking lodgings with me? Really? Well, a vacancy has conveniently presented itself. Though it is up to the attic, I might add. Are you sure it isn't just a storage loft? I spoke with the landlady this morning on the matter of price, and Iris is cleaning the room as we speak. You must come at once. I presume you have no luggage to speak of. This is simply wonderful. What an honor to be invited to take lodgings in the great detective office's attic. I'm too overcome for words. So suggesting we look elsewhere is out of the... Then it's settled. Iris will prepare a welcome dinner this evening. And you must come too, Mr. Natsume. I insist. I don't know what to say. But thank you. And yes! Wonderful. Then I'll go and complete the paperwork for your formal release, Mr. Natsume. Shan't take long. Somebody's happy. Locum, I knew you wouldn't let me down. I'm truly delighted to have met you here in London. Likewise, Mr. Natsume. It's been a privilege of meeting you too. It's a shame going to have to say goodbye so soon. Well, I've come to realize I belong in Japan. But Locum! We'll meet again one day. Yes, I'm sure. And hopefully by then, I'll be a successful lawyer. Hopefully by then, I'll be a successful author. Well, my dear fellow, our carriage appears to have arrived. Shall we go, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, Mr. Sholmes. I've little doubt Mr. Natsume will be released in time for dinner this evening. And so, with Sosuke-san's innocence successfully established, we rode with Mr. Sholmes to what was to become our new home, 221B Baker Street. An attic. So this is to be our new office, yes. Our office. I rather like the sound of that. Me too. It's simply wonderful, isn't it? I hope you can see this, Kazuma. It's only a small step, but I'd like to think we're getting a little closer to your dream now. So, my dear fellows, do you like the place? Mr. Sholmes. Yes, thank you very much. It's a very delightful room. I simply adore it. And good, I'm glad to hear it. Iris and I are delighted to welcome you. I hope everyone's hungry. It's nearly time for dinner. We'll eat as soon as Mr. Natsume arrives. We have a lot to celebrate. You must let me help you. Alright then, Susie. You can be in charge of the salad. Splendid. So, Mr. Naruhodo, how does it feel to have your own office in the capital? It's very exciting, actually. I can't help wondering what adventures await us. Ah-ha-ha-ha! Ah-ha-ha! Those were precisely my sentiments when I first established my offices at this premises. Until I discovered the dark truth about the city of London, that is. Sorry? London is a glorious place full of wonder, opportunity, prosperity, and mirth. But the brightest of lights cast the dark of shadows. Well, well, I believe you're well aware of the murkiness that lies behind London's facade already. So once again, Mr. Naruhodo, welcome to London. Of course, at the time, I had no idea of the significance of those words Mr. Sholmes so casually spoke. But it wasn't long before my turn came to lift the facade and see the true depth of the murk that lay behind it. And with that, our fourth case is finally done. And I'll see you guys next time.